what is your understanding of what the current administration, the current FBI, is doing to purge these, what many believe to be bad faith partisan activists within the institution that might number anywhere between 10 and 20,000 of the rank and file? Do you know if the current administration is doing anything to purge the FBI of its corrupt elements?
Well, if we read their Twitters or their X posts, it's, unfortunately, it's just follow the plan and wait. It's coming. Now, all right. So I'm going to be absolutely as forthright as I can be, as transparent as I can possibly be, and that is this. The Blaze has a long time good reputation and good relationship and standing with both Bongino and Cash Patel. All right. And I don't want to do anything to ruin that. But I will tell you, after the interview last week with Marie Bartiromo that both Dan and Cash gave to her, even Glenn Beck the next morning on his show was like, what the heck, guys? You're wanting us to believe these things that, Dan Bongino, you have done a 180-degree flip on a couple of these issues now. Very specifically, Epstein did kill himself, and the Butler shooter was acting alone, neither of which Dan believed when he was a radio guy, and he seems to have flipped on both of those. And all we're asking from Blaze official is, because it's now no longer an open investigation, you can show us the truth. When it's an open investigation, yes, we know FBI, you can't talk about it. Well, if it's closed, if this is a closed case, show us. Show us what you know. Show us what you discovered. You can do that without revealing your practices and methods.
Let me bring up Glenn's tweet on the subject, which was, let me see if this is the right one. Yeah, this is it. It says, Glenn Beck, FBI Director Cash and Bongino now claim they believe Epstein's death was suicide. They didn't used to believe that. I still don't believe that. However, I know Dan Bongino. I know he's a credible guy. He loves his country. I know Cash Patel. I think he's an honorable guy. He loves his country. But in order for me to believe Epstein killed himself, the FBI must produce, 1, the full unredacted forensic and autopsy reports, 2, the surveillance footage or sworn testimony from neutral parties confirming no foul play went down, 3, the entire timeline of that camera, the video leading up to it, when it went out, the exact moment it turned off, why it broke, and why the most high-profile prisoner in America was removed from suicide watch just days before. 4, most of all, what changed Patel and Bongino's minds? I tend to believe Patel and Bongino. I don't believe there's some sort of conspiracy inside MAGA, but I also believe that Epstein didn't kill himself with a paper sheet. So show us the facts. We must restore trust. The issue is, and Dan mentioned a file. The first question everybody had is, well, let us see the file, 1, and 2, who prepared that file? If it's the file prepared by a corrupt, weaponized, murderous FBI before Dan and Cash came in, how much can you rely on that? The second question goes to Butler, because it's one thing to say the Epstein case is closed. I did not take that away from the answer as relates to Butler. Is it your impression, or at least Glenn Beck's, that the Butler case is now closed? I didn't get that impression, but a lot of people have that impression.
I got the impression that at the very least they're leaning to the lone gunman acted alone theory on that, and I will tell you that I'm totally not in that camp. I'm not in that camp in the least. All of our sourcing from the special ops and the IC community do not believe that this was a lone gunman. They believe that he was a groomed young man, groomed by professionals like themselves. We're talking about individuals that have done this overseas. This is what they do in the hot spots around the world, is they groom young men to be weapons or to be useful at the time of when need arises. And when they saw the way Thomas Crooks behaved that day, they saw, as they said to me, I saw my own handiwork in that young man.
That is, and I won't ask you who said that, but that's fascinating in the sinister sense. Set aside that. It's the same thing with Epstein. If Epstein, in the literal technical sense, with his own hands took his own life, fine. That it was facilitated to happen by cameras going off, security guards being asleep or removed, that it was facilitated to happen itself could be the conspiracy. Okay, fine. Epstein did it himself because it was either that or something worse, so he did it. He was given the opportunity to do it. Go to Butler. Let's just assume the kid was a loner nutbag who got radical or whatever, but that he had that opportunity because of the layered incompetence of Butler. You know, the outdoor venue, the carving out of the shooting platform. What is it called when you go hunting and you're on a perch? The carving out of the shooting perch from the perimeter. The inability to communicate between police and Secret Service. So even if it were a let it happen on purpose lone gunman, how the hell did the layered incompetence that allowed that to occur in the first place ever occur? And I know, you know, Bongino always said on his show, like, layered incompetence is intent. And, you know, when it comes to Epstein, allowing all of that to happen so Epstein can put the extra linens together, which in and of themselves wouldn't be strong enough to hang from, but, you know, you rope them together and whatever. How did it happen? What is your, what's your, I say gut feeling, it doesn't really make a difference, but what's your gut feeling? What's your educated opinion on what the hell is going on?
Well, let's go back to what you're talking about as far as layered incompetence. The first thing that you have to always default to when you do this, and you have to go to incompetence before you go to conspiracy theory. You have to, because if we're talking about the largest government in the world, we're talking about the most incompetent government in the world. Government by its very nature is incompetent because of the way it's structured. And so it is, if it's the largest government, it's the most incompetent government. And then you have multiple layers of these intelligence agencies and policing organizations related to Butler just on that day alone. But see, all of their communications were siloed that day. In other words, each one had communication with themselves, and that was all supposed to be ended. Remember? That was supposed to all be taken care of after 9/11. Apparently, 24 years later, it still wasn't taken care of.
Okay, but there's silos, and then there's shouting a cell number. Like, there's so many silos is one thing. That we're led to believe that I think it was like a full 5 minutes where no one could reach Trump's team to just keep him safe. It's not silos. One thing. It's the inability to communicate as you know, animals in the jungle would have communicated.
No, I got assigned to the Butler case. I mean, within 30 minutes after the shooting, my editor-in-chief was on the phone, and he said, "All right, you and Joe, one of my co-writer on this story that we've talked about today, Joe Hanneman." He said, "You and Joe are on this. Go." You know, and so we wrote a series of articles on this particular story, and that was one of the things that we discovered, and we absolutely were able to verify through our own sourcing out there, is that in fact that they were communicating for several minutes and they couldn't reach one another. We're talking about, we're talking about not just agency to agency, but within their own agencies, they couldn't talk to one another, and then you have the delay of the snipers who saw the kid before he took the first shot. They had him identified, but because it was siloed, they couldn't get the authorization to shoot, because there was supposed to be a counter sniper team on that roof. They didn't want to kill one of their own. We know that they were calling this in a full 2.5 minutes in advance, going, "We got somebody on this roof over here. He's got a rifle. Is it one of ours? Is he a friendly?" And so they were trying to, what they call, deconflict, to make sure they didn't take out one of their own. And during that time, the kids started shooting.
Okay, that's a fair explanation if we're dealing with a bunch of high school, schnooks putting on an event for the first time. Okay, interesting. Did Glenn Beck get an answer? I guess another question is, what they did an interview with Maria Bartiromo. Why can't they do an interview with Glenn Beck?
They probably should. He's certainly a friendly. He would be a friendly voice. He's going to ask harder questions probably than they did. You know, one, as I said before, if Maria Bartiromo, and I'm not going to question anybody in the moment, because we all think of better things we could have said or better things we could have asked after we're finished with the interview. We all do that. But one of the things that would have been important for her to say, as I said earlier, is that the typical response from the FBI is that we can't comment on an ongoing investigation. You've told us today that, Dan and Cash, you've told us that this is a closed case. So Why not just show the American people that? You can't hide behind the official pat answer of the FBI. So show us. And now, okay. And this is where I'm going to give a little bit of grace to both Cash and Dan as well. Is, as you identified earlier, they are up against a nightmare of an internal problem, the internal rot within the Bureau, the internal rot within the agency of the CIA, within all of the IC community, within the Department of Defense. It's so wide, it's so deep that they have an incredible job ahead of them. Now, are we impatient? Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if Cash has been on the job 60 days now since his confirmation, but we probably are being impatient to a certain extent, but there are actions that they are taking as well. Like, for instance, the appointment of Stephen Jensen, the J6 warlord, to the ADIC position of the FBI's Washington field office. That's the assistant director in charge. And appointing him to that inflamed the entire J6 community, which we started off talking about today to begin with. And we're still not happy about that. We still don't have answers for that. They still haven't answered why him, why that guy, the guy that persecuted hundreds of us and brought charges against hundreds.
The argument in support of him is that he did see the injustice along the way and he did change tact along the way. So it's not like he was stubborn to the end and now had a volte-face. So, Barnes and I talked about him a couple times on the Sunday night show and say, he saw the error as it was in effect and he changed course in real time. So he wasn't a anti-Jan 6er right to the end. That's the steel man.
Are you speculating or that? Or do we have a statement from Jensen on that?
I do not know offhand that there's a statement. I think it's more not speculating, but concluding from his positions along the way. But you asked me for the receipts, and I'll have to go now, and I have to go back and tap into my bookmarks and see about that. That was the Steelman defense of him. The two whistleblowers, the two FBI whistleblowers, Friend and I just had Brianna Morello on talking about them.
Garrett Boyle or Steve Friend, Kyle Serafson are the most known of the whistleblowers, but there are many others other than just them.
I know that Kyle has his issues with Bongino and have been exacerbated by this. Have they been invited back or tapped into for the weapon, to chime in on the weaponization of the FBI?
No. As a matter of fact, even Kyle, who's the most acerbic of all of them, I mean, Kyle has been given the gift of gab. I mean, he inherited that from his father. His father was 40-year radio news guy. And in fact, his father was the last guy to interview David Koresh alive while he was in the compound at Waco.
Wow.
His father actually, there's actually a recording of that. And so Kyle comes by his media persona, honestly. And then Steve Friend could not be a bigger Boy Scout on this planet. I mean, he is the most straight shooting guy I've ever met with, talked with, spoke to in my life. Garrett O'Boyle is the single most absolute innocent of all the whistleblowers, to the point where even mainstream media journalists confessed to me in private that Garrett should have his job back. He's been without work, without pay for over 1,000 days. He should be given back pay and, restitution and reparations for the way that they treated him. He's 100% guilty of, 100% innocent of what they accused him of and what they suspended him of doing. And in their conversations, I will tell you this, because they've been open about it. I wouldn't talk about it unless, Kyle's been very open about it. And he's provided the receipts on his X page, is that they had conversations with Dan and Cash beforehand. Specifically, Cash told them that they were going to be restored, and that in fact, after his confirmation was clear, he sent them over a private message, which they've screenshotted and put it out there. Couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you.
This is Cash putting
Patel.
out this Patel, a DM to the whistleblowers. Thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. And I guess the complaint is that we're now, I think Cash has been there for a little over 2 months, but we're a little over 2 months in, maybe 3 months in, and nothing has been done with respect to them as of yet.
That's correct. That's correct. And when it comes to restoration of Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I could almost see why, and Kyle would be the first one to admit that he could even understand why they might not want him back in, because he's been, he's been nothing but a ham. All of them have been hammering. All of them have been hammering the Bureau as it is, or as it was, but they've been really disappointed in the aftermath, because they were team Cash, man. They were cheering for Cash. They were promoting for Cash. They were absolutely endorsing his nomination, and then they cheered his confirmation, and then all of a sudden Cash went away. Well, and that's just the truth. That's just the truth. Yeah, anybody can read into that whatever they want to, but it is what it is.
As of today, and then whether or not they need more time to get things in order. But my biggest question that Maria didn't ask is, what are they doing to purge the radical elements of the FBI? The broader question, I don't know that Dan believes the FBI can be reformed. He's part of the institution now, and if he's to the extent he does believe that, certainly can't say it. He's now an employee of the state. Cash seems to believe that it can be reformed. I don't believe that it can. The institution's rotten to its core. The only question is, Cash, by disbanding the J. Edgar Hoover office and putting all those, however many 15,000 that work in the DC area out into the field, maybe that's how he expects to do the passive purge, sort of the way Harmeet has purged her division of radical elements. But if he's got faith in the institution, and the institution itself is rotten to the core beyond any healing, they're in for 3 years of a failure. I mean, they're in for 3 years of sabotage.
And I think that's quite possibly the case, or the way it's going to play out. I mean, think about this too. And again, I'm trying to every day to come up with reasons to give Cash and Dan, the amount of grace that they deserve as we wait for the plan to unfold. And one aspect of this is they are seeing the pushback of the federal courts, these district court judges in DC, denying some of the agencies the right to even fire people. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm the boss. I've been given this position. Congress the Senate has approved me to this position. Why do I not have the right to let these people go? Why do I not have the right to cut out the chaff, to get rid of the corruption inside my own agency? And they're seeing this being denied, so they may be just waiting for some of these other cases to play out before they start the purge, so they don't have to go through the legal machinations of counterpunching with the judiciary. Maybe.
Yeah. We shall see, because one way or another, time will march forward, and we'll see what happens with Epstein. We'll see what's revealed in Epstein. There's murmurings on the street that there might actually be additional information, additional video footage that might shed some light on it. My only problem is, like, I put out a poll. Even if video evidence does come out, because whatever, they found a camera that worked, or they they salvaged the deleted video. Nobody's going to believe the video's real anyhow. Like, it's all right. We were told the video footage was deleted accidentally, or that the cameras weren't working, and now we found it. Man, it's a post-truth era where you don't know who to believe, you don't know what to trust, you don't know what to believe, and even if you see it with your own eyes, you still might not believe it, and it might not be real, even if you see it with your own eyes.